know, has anyone here actually been to the Hotel du Lieu, Paris? It's
Okay.
All right, I think we all set.
I think we're set now, Prabhuji. So we can go.
Okay. All right. So, dear devotees, we welcome you to today's SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM discourse.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly, Prabhu.
All right. Yeah, so His Grace Salika Prabhuji is going to speak to us about the transcendental SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, which is the solace to the heart in this age of Kali, and is the gateway to transcendence. So we're going to put the verse on the screen, and Prabhuji, you may begin. Okay, Prabhuji, so you may take it from here. Salika Prabhu, you are muted.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, somebody's calling me. So just a second. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I think we are set now to start. Let me put my phone on silence so that we can concentrate on this verse. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritam Narachaivam Naruttamam Devi Saraswati Vyasam Patujaya Mudirayet Nasta Praisu Abhadrishu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavatam Bhagavatam Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Reading from SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. Sorry. We're reading from SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, 1st Canto, chapter 17, text number 26. We'll be reading 26 and 27 because text number 26 has no purpose by Srila Prabhupada. So text number 26 read thus. Iyam cha bhumi bhagavata inyasito rubarasati srinad bistat padanya sahe Saravata Krita Kautuka. Word for word translation. No, we'll read the word for next word. The burden of the earth was certainly diminished by the personality of Godhead and by others as well. When he was present as an incarnation, all good was performed because of his auspicious footprints. Text number 27. So Shati Asrukala Sadvihi Duruba Gevo Gita Sati Abramanya Nripa Jaha Sudra Boksyan Imam Am Itihi. Soshati Asrukala Sadvi. Durba Gevo Jita Asati. Abramanya Ndepa Yaja. Sudra Boksyanti Mam Iti. Word for one translation. Sochati lamenting. Asrukala with tears in the eyes. Sadvi the chaste. Durubagaha as if the most unfortunate. Eva like. Ujitaha fallen. Sati been so done. Abramanyaha devoid of Brahmanical culture. Nripavaya ja posed as the ruler. Shudraha lower class. Bhokshanti would enjoy. Mam me. Iti does. Translation purport by his evangelist Labai Charanaravinde Sibhakti Vedanta Swami. Now she, the chaste one, being unfortunately forsaken by the personality of God, laments her future with tears in her eyes. For now, she is being ruled and enjoyed by lower class men who pose as rulers. Purport by his evangelist Prabhupada. The Kshatriya, or the man who is qualified to protect the sufferers, is meant to rule the state. Untrained lower class men, or men without ambition to protect the sufferers, cannot be placed on the seat of an administrator. Unfortunately, in the age of Kali, the lower class men without training occupy the post of a ruler by strength of popular votes. And instead of protecting the sufferers, such men create a situation quite intolerable for everyone. Such rulers illegally gratify themselves at the cost of all comforts of the citizen. And thus the chaste Mother Earth cries to see the pitiable condition of her sons, both men and animals. That is the future of the world in the age of Kali, when religiosity prevails most prominently, and in the absence of a suitable king to curb irreligious tendencies, educating the people systematically in the teaching of SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM will clear up the easy atmosphere of corruption, bribery, blackmail, etc. Omagyanam Timirandasya Gyanam Gyanam Shalakaya Shaksho Militam Jainatas Maheshri Ravi Nama Sri Shaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Swam Padantikam Vanchakarpata Rubhyascha Kripa Sundubhya Sivascha Patitanam Pavashnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Nama Jai Sri Krishna Jai Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Tantra Srimad Bhagavatam class ki jai. Sushati Asrukala Sadvi Dhruva Gevo Jita Asati Abramanya Nripaya Vyaja Sudra Bhoksyantimam Iti. Now she, the chaste one, being unfortunately forsaken by the personality of God, laments her future with tears in her eyes. For now she's been ruled and enjoyed by lower class men who pose as rulers. Hare Krishna. So before attempting to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam, I want to offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of God, Narayan, to Narayan from being. Like yesterday, the author of the Srimad Bhagavatam, to all of the acharyas and the Paramparam Disciplic Successions, to all our dear spiritual masters, Srila Bhakti Tita Swami, Gurudev Krishnapad, and to all of the Vaishnavas assembled here and other places, who by their mercy we are able to associate with the loving, compassionate devotees of the Lord. So this is a duty call, as they say. Srila Prabhupada said that as a devotee, we should be prepared. Like the Boy Scout, the motto of a Boy Scout is be prepared. Because the material world itself is actually a war zone, so a warrior should be always prepared. So I played for the blessings of all of the devotees to be able to render this service of speaking on the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM for my personal purification, for the listening pleasure of the devotees. So we're continuing our discussion from this section of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM where Dharma personified, Mother Cow, who is personification of Dharma, is talking. And here she's saying, in the two verses that we're reading together, in the first verse, she started by saying that the burden of the earth was certainly diminished by the personality of Godhead and by others as well. When he was present as an incarnation, all good was performed because of his auspicious fruitfulness. So Lord Krishna 5,000 years ago appeared in this material world. Of course, he always applies, like he said in the Bhagavad Gita, yada yada yadamasya glani bhavati bharata. Abhyutanam adamasya tadatmanam sri jamyaham. Whenever and wherever there's a decline in religious principles and a predominant rise of religion, at that time I descend. Then he said, Paritranaya sadhuna vinasaya dusitam dhammasamstapanataya sambhavami juge juge. To give pleasure to devotees, to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish religious principles. I, the Supreme Personality of God, the descend millennium after millennium. So the personification is referring to that here. That when the Lord appeared, in this case, 5,000 years ago, he enacted pastimes and then he got rid of all of the inauspiciousness on the earth by his presence. But the moment he left, as we read in the Mahabharata, at the advent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the age of Kali set in, which is the section we're reading. And as age of Kali set in, the symptoms in the previous chapters we've read about the omens and the signs that signify that the age of Kali has descended. And one of the features of Kali Yuga is what is being discussed in this section, and then the future of Kali Yuga. So in verse 27 of this 17th chapter of First Canto, she said that now, it's the Kabi as the says one. She's lamenting the absence of the presence of the Lord, because the bleakness that engulfs Kali Yuga, it started already manifesting, and it's going to be getting worse in the future. And that is what he's saying here. And what is going to be the result of that? Just like in a natural circumstances, when there is light, everyone is happy. When there is darkness, there is anxiety, there is chaos, there is all kinds of difficulties. Of course, as Kali Yuga advances, the criminals doesn't need the darkness to engage in criminality. Today we see that in the broad daylight, a criminal comes in. When we were growing up, it is very difficult to see that in the afternoon somebody is robbing. You cannot ask, you hardly can find the case of a robbery in the afternoon or in the morning. But as Kali Yuga, this is what is being described here. As Kali Yuga advances, there will no longer be the Raja Rishis or kings or rulers of the earth. What we will have is that plunderers, and these are plunderers who will come in the guise of politicians. In the Vedic scriptures, there are so many descriptions of different kinds of leadership that exists in the material setting. And in his book, in the leadership, in the book, leadership book, Srila Bhakti Maharaj enumerated those different types of leadership: communism, socialism, capitalism, democracy. And it is mentioned that democracy is the worst among all of them. But one philosopher also said that among all of the worst government, democracy is the best among the worst government, because in confusion in delusionment, whatever stands, just like in a drowning situation, when someone is drowning, whatever, whether it's a twig, whether it's a dead body, whether it's a snake, whether it's even a shark that can eat, becomes a solace. One sees anything at that point as a solace to hold on to when he is drowning. So the Kali Yuga is like this. It's a drowning situation. It's like a drowning situation whereby everything is going down. So in that situation, just like in the case of a drowning man, whatever can be grabbed is a source of sustenance. So at that point in time, a drowning man doesn't consider whether this is a dead man or dead body, whether this is even a dangerous sharks or any carnivorous animal in the water. He just wants to hold on to something. And then whether that thing is going to hold on to, is going to devour it or not devour it, he doesn't care. But he just wants to hold on to something because he does, at that time, nothing actually exists in his mind. He's just looking for survival. And that is the state of Kali Yuga. We're just trying to survive. And in the consciousness of trying to survive, anything goes. And it is in the mood of anything goes that brings about the democracy. When you go all over the world today, the world is so much disgusted or not interested in any form of government other than democracy, because democracy by its definition seems to be is kind of a circle. Government for the people, by the people, for the people. But we've seen in recent times that the government of the democracy, although it is meant to, is supposed to be the government for the people, by the people, for the people, but it is government on the people, not for the people. It is government on the people, for the people, in the sense that the politicians use the citizens as a pawn, as a tool. It is said that in Kali Yuga, rather than using human beings whether in any forms of human being, whether it's a human, whether it's animal, just like it's mentioned in the text and in the purport by Srila Prabhupada, whether it's a human, whether it's animal, the living entity in Kali Yuga focuses on using that which is supposed to be appreciated. And there's a popular saying that human being is meant to be valued and things are to be used. But humanity uses man and value things. And this is what is the principles of democracy. In democracies, the politicians, rather than value human being, value the creations of God. They use humanity and they value things. And that is the absurd situation in Kali Yuga. And that is what is clearly being described in this text, that Prabhupada explained very clearly in the purport that the qualified brahmanas are the rulers or the leaders of societies are meant to rule the state. But because in Kali Yuga, like I said earlier, it's a drowning situation, it's a chaotic situation. People are not trained. And because they're not trained, they do not know the essence or the purpose for the behind leadership. People study, go to the so-called a system of education, but they do not go for the goal of education. They go for education for another purpose, for just sense gratification. And that is the challenge in Kali Yuga in this age. In the purport by Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada explained that this untrained lower class of men or men without ambition to protect the sufferers cannot be placed on the seat of an administrator. But these people do not wait to be placed in the seat of administrator. In the past, the leadership, the kings, are put in position according to the models that is created by the Lord in the form of Varna and Ashram. According to the Varna and Ashram, there are 4 social orders of life, starting from the Brahmanical level. The Brahmins are the head of the society, and they decide, they guide the society how it should go. And they give leadership to a well-trained Kshatriya. And a well-trained Kshatriya, he looks at the Vaishyas. He collects taxes and remunerations from the Vaishyas, and he distributes. and the Sudras serve the community, the society. But because in Kali Yuga, this system of education is the opposite. According to the word educate or education, it is meant to do or to bring out the qualities of humanity. And this morning I was on a TV program. We're talking about education in prison. On the 13th of October is the International Day of Education in Prisons. And then we're running a project on that, my NGO and then some other a group of organizations. When we were on that program, and the reporter, the anchor of that program, the host of the program he asked a question. He said, so how do you want to define a prisoner? And everybody was put into a kind of a shock. And one of the devotees that went with me, when we were coming back, was explaining to me that actually the cameraman that I may not have noticed, but that the cameraman that was shooting the video of the, it was a live program. He said his camera dropped when I responded. And what was my response? Because when they asked, and I said, actually, everyone in this material world is a prisoner. It was like dropping a bomb. There was, if you look at the expressions, I'm hoping to get the tape of that recording of that program. I requested the producer to bring out. When I said it, it was such a strange thing, but a 1 day, 2 day old devotee in the Krishna consciousness knows this. And then when you were looking at me, when I saw the expression and I started explaining, I said, let me explain this, because it may sound weird. Because if we do not understand the tenet of things, then it becomes difficult to be able to act. Because human life is actually a manifestation of 4 stages of life. The stages of enlightenment. It is what we are enlightened about that brings about what we accept. And it's only what we accept that we make choices about. And I gave an example of a Coke or any soft drinks. We choose to, we make a choice to take a particular drink because what? We have been enlightened, we have been informed about that drink. And then because we have been informed, even when we have not experienced it, we somehow or the other accept that this may be true. Just like in our educational system, modern educational system, we go into the educational system, the educationists have told us, go to school, get a certificate, you get a good job, you get a good wife, you get a good house, and you get a good enjoyment. But we see that even with the highest of degrees, people sometimes, especially in Nigerian situation, I don't know of other places, the more qualified you are in terms of educational certificate, the more useless you become in the society, because in today's employment system, people don't even want to employ someone who has too much of qualification because they don't want to pay that, or sometimes they don't even have the capacity. So, and I started explaining to that post. I said, look, a prisoner is someone that has no ability to do what he wants, what he wishes to do, at what time, in a particular way, the way he desires it. And then I said, let me have it. Do you want to fall sick? He said, no. So who is imposing sickness on you? You find yourself in this cage called your body. You can identify every part of your body, but who are the you that is actually, this is the basis of Krishna consciousness, the ABC. But an average person lacks this basic tenets of knowledge. So I was explaining to them, I said, life experience, you can agree with me that you're a prisoner, because whatever you want, you don't get. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. The all teaches you how to get a good job, how to get, if you are fortunate, you get a good job, then you get some money. Maybe you get a good wife that will maybe Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, sorry, there was a break in my network. So I was explaining. I said, this is what your education affords you. It centers you around what? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So there is no knowledge. Actually, we're so happy. Our modern day leaders of the world are so happy that they have created so many institutions of education. But their education is what? It's useless because it is not real education. Real education means that once you know that the Supreme Personality of God exists and the living entities are part and parcel of him. I say one other madness we see in the society is that the conception of dominion. People talk about dominion and they think that dominion means to exploit. Dominion does not mean that. I said, so the reality is that we are all prisoners because one who has no control over the senses, who does not dictate to the senses, rather is being dictated to by the senses on what is to be done, is a prisoner. I said, an average person in the world today, the greatest of the greatest politicians in the world are slaves of their senses. I said they should be pitied. And that is actually unfortunate. In some forums, some few days ago, we were celebrating International Day of Peace. And we're speaking at the United Nations. I said, well, they were talking about the war in Ukraine and in Russia. And I was explaining. I said, actually, the challenge, why the leaders of the world are not able to cope this situation is that they are not seeing from the right perspectives. I said, Putin, the president of Russia, and the government, the head of the government of Ukraine are all weak people who need assistance. I said a strong person does not in any way, he never thinks the way they are thinking because he knows that what is the basic understanding is Abasias, Idam Sava, Yakinsha Jagatia Jagat, Tena Tek Tena Bunjita, Maglia Kaswasi Dana, as stated in the Upanishad, that everything is owned and controlled by the Lord. These basic tenets of knowledge, they don't have it. So they're such unfortunate persons. So if the world leaders want to do anything meaningful, they have to help these people. So in this purpose, Prabhupada is emphatically explaining that these people, unfortunately, in this age, they are lower class of men. They have no training. They have occupied the post of ruler by the strength of popular votes. And how do they get popular votes? This is an interesting thing. When you look at the political scene in every country of the world, when you look at the kind of amount of money that is used in winning elections, you start wondering, what is the purpose behind these elections? If elections are meant to go and take the role of a servant of the people, so why there's so much? If somebody has to struggle, in the newspaper we were reading yesterday, the INEC, the electoral body in Nigeria, was saying, he said the leading two parties, PDP and APC, they have yet to remit to the body the statement of their spending for the election that was held in 2019. They are going to hold another election in 2023, just like a few months ago to come. But they have not been able to remit that. Why? Because it is very impossible for them to actually remit such a record. Why? Because when in just election for one state alone, you spend over 20 billion naira, and I don't know how much you put that into US dollar. So if somebody, how does somebody raise that kind of money? And if somebody even asks that kind of money, invest it, how would there not be corruptions? Because he's a businessman. So what we have as leaders in our modern day society are just businessmen, capitalists who invest their energy so hardly to acquire by greed, by force, by whatever means, to acquire whatever they could acquire. And when they acquire this, they want to multiply it because that is their focus, because their goal is what? I'm Mameti, I'm this material body. So whatever satisfies this body, individually, collectively, extensionally, they want to improve upon that. That's what they do. So this kind of leaders are not what is required in a civil society. In one of his purports, Prabhupada mentioned that for a peaceful society, there is a need for a good population. But how can we get a good population when there is no principles of religion? We're discussing the last two verses into this verse, 2-3 verses, where the principles of religion have been depicted or enumerated. These basic principles of religion are not in the society. And just like any other creation, once the principles that create or that put in place that particular thing is missing, that particular existence becomes a conflict, it becomes a disturbance, it becomes a destruction in whatever capacity. So that goes in line with what the purport is saying in the purport here, that instead of protecting the sufferers, these such men, they create a situation quite intolerable for everyone. You can imagine about 12 years ago, or thereabout, yes, 2010, 12 years ago, there was a government in this country called, by one name, I don't have to mention his name. There was a government person in government, and there was a brand of insecurity that was created called the Boko Haram in Nigeria. And somebody campaigned and he said, my coming into government is to come and stop Boko Haram. And when he came into government, what he succeeded in doing is that he increased the problem of Boko Haram to Boko Haram and banditry. And after 4 years, the Boko Haram and banditry increased from Boko Haram and banditry to Fulani herdsmen. And then from Fulani herdsmen, towards the end of his governance now, we are having what is called the upsurge of kidnapping. Because the reality of this is that as the time goes by, these challenges of difficulties or the suffering of these masses of people are increasing. And people are so unintelligent, they cannot see this. Although they see they are suffering, but they cannot come to bear reality that what? My God, this is not working. So what is working? But there are some few intelligent men. In the program we had today, there was one barrister. He has called me twice today after the program in the morning. In just like about 6-7 hours ago now, we left the program. When we were leaving the program, he said, sir, we came here for something, but I think I need to learn. I'm a learned man, described as a lawyer. He's a senior advocate or something like that. He said, but please, what you started saying on this, I've never had it in all of my life. I've studied from grade A, ABC, to become a professional lawyer as a solicitor and advocate. But what you are saying here, where can I find this one? I said, I'm ready for you. And I brought out the law of nature. I said, you're a lawyer. Maybe you start with this one. So I gave me law of nature. He said, you have given me a feast for my weekend. He had called twice today. People need this knowledge. So this is a call for the devotees. Actually, the world cannot be revived in any circumstances. This message, and that is what Prabhupada is saying, this message of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM needs to go out. That is what Prabhupada is concluding. This SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, the teaching of SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, it is the solution, it is the Medicare, it is the panacea to clearing up the atmosphere of corruption, bribery, blackmailing, and all of the difficulties. If anybody thinks that there can be any solution, then there is a problem, because from experience, nothing has worked. This process, this Bhagavatam, this message of Bhagavata, it has worked in the past, it's working now, and it will always continue to work because it's what? It is emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And because Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the creator, the manufacturer, the owner of everything. So it can never be wrong. So therefore, for devotees, as we engage in this daily kata of Srimad Bhagavatam, we should see ourselves as being fortunate. Because why? We are carriers of the most valuable items in the existence of the whole of the creations. Even Lord Brahma, the great sages, all of the great personalities, they stand by. Srila Prabhupada will explain. And sometimes when we join devotionals, when these verses are quoted, that even the sages, they come and they sit down, they want to hear. When the Bhagavatam is being recited, we never comprehend it. But as we go on in devotional self, this becomes more and more realistic and more reliable. The reality is that this Bhagavatam is the solution, is the cure for everything. And we can see it on a practical level, individually, in our individual life, in our collective life. Our challenges in devotional service will definitely be there. There is no thing that will say that there will not be challenges. Sometimes devotees get confused and wonder, well, if this Bhagavatam is the solution to everything, and we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, okay, let us assume that we're not perfect. We may not be perfect yet now, but then we're taking this process. So where there are still challenges, they will come. Because why? Bhagavatam will come to cure everything, but our previous situation, to the degree we release our arms from our attachment to our past life experiences, to that degree, we release Srimad Bhagavatam. To that degree, we get succor from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Bhagavatam is blissful. It is the essence of life. And my only request is that, in fact, it is said that if a devotee does not preach, he has no life. Actually, one who does not preach Bhagavatam is a dead person. Although he's existing, he seemingly is breathing, and then his breathing is just like the bellows of the blacksmith, as it is described in the scriptures. Because this tongue, this mouth, this body is only meant to speak, to see, to glorify only SRIMAD Bhagavatam, because that is the essence of life. There's no other thing left anywhere. So devotees, we should consider ourselves fortunate that we have this opportunity, that we can continuously hear, drink SRIMAD Bhagavatam on a daily basis like this. And if we have any other thing that distracts us, that disturbs us from taking this SRIMAD Bhagavatam, then we should make a genuine, frantic effort to actually remove those things, because whatever it is that can be the challenges, if we take to this hearing of SRIMAD Bhagavatam, it cleanses all doubt. We can never get any solution, whether from the leaders of the society, present leaders of the society. Prabhupada is very good with words. He says, such rulers, illegality, gratify themselves at the cost of all comforts of the citizen, and thus the chaste Mother Earth cries in the pitiable condition of our sons, both men and animals. Prabhupada is very sweet. Prabhupada is very good at using words. And this is actually our situations. We are struggling like anything. Everybody is working very hard to get some little comfort. We can imagine what it takes actually for one to have an ordinary shelter in the previous past. This is something that nobody even thinks about. Nobody even thinks about it. But now, just to get a good shelter, it is said that our eating situation, actually, in this age, although 12 canto of SRIMAD Bhagavatam describe it, but even now that Kali Yuga is just beginning, we can imagine everything that we consume is a poison. And we can analytically study this. Somebody posted something on, I think, HARE KRISHNA Africa platform the other day, and I think maybe that was Kavika and Prabhu, that what? Don't press the Google to describe your symptoms. And that's actually an amazing advice, because the reality is that whatever we want to do in modern day technology, we go to the Google, but it does not cure our problems. It increases them manifold. So whatever it is that is there does not give comfort to the conditioned soul, because the living entity is not meant to be here in the first place. So our real goal, life goal, is to get out of this system, especially in this age of Kali, because it will never get better. The illusion is to think that things will get better, not only in the secular world, even in the religious system, because the reality is that, let us even look at it. When Lord Krishna came, when he left, the experience is what we are seeing. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came 500 years ago. And when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, what happened? Devotees scattered everywhere. And he took the wife of Lord Nityananda to start initiating. According to Vedic scripture guidelines, a woman is not supposed to, but because Sita Thakurani, the wife of Lord Nityananda, wasn't just an ordinary woman, she started initiating and started gathering devotees together. But then immediately after the era of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what happened? Everything scatters again. Then comes what? Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur started. When we read the seven Goswami, you look at the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, what he did, and he started gathering people together. But whatever Bhaktivinoda put together, the moment he was going towards the exit, what happened? A serious crisis, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has to come, and he started fighting philosophically all of the imposters who are posting themselves as Vaishnavas, as religious persons, as spiritualists. And what happened? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he was going towards the end of his era, what happened? Even his own disciples created even what is not supposed to be in this secular society. And if I'm not mistaken, even up till now, there are still some cases there unfinished. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati have left since how many decades ago? Then Srila Prabhupada came. And what Prabhupada did? He started bringing the fortunate souls. And that's why I like that book like anything, the Fortunate Soul book. I think we should read that book. It's because it gives a lot of guidance. So brought all of the fortunate souls together, which were fortunate to be among those fortunate souls. And we think that it's going to be a different situation. No, it will never. It's the same scenario because this is the age of Kali. And that is why Lord Krishna told Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, in this age of Kali. That's what Lord Krishna told Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita chapter, I think that is in chapter, I think that's chapter 8. It was saying that those who are great sages, they do not take pleasure in the activities of this material world. So therefore, devotees of the Lord, time is fast spent. I think I've been speaking for so long now. So I think I would like to summarize. So the summary is that there is no other succor. In this age of Kali, we have been given the golden egg. We have been given the golden gift of this SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. Let us release this SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM and get the comfort that we desire as a spirit soul, because there is no other comfort in this age except this SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity to render this service. Forgive me for whatever wrong things I have said. Correct me wherever there is a need for correction, and bless me that I may always release SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for stepping in, Shri Salika Prabhuji. And as usual, by Guru Krishna's grace, you've spoken so beautifully. Lots of important things to take into consideration. And at this point, we ask the devotees if anyone has questions, comments, realizations, please, you are free to do that now. Just use the hand emoji or use your human hand to ask your question or make your comment. See, Salika Prabhu, the text we read today, I believe that was spoken by Maharaj Parikshit, because it seems Maharaj Parikshit has been speaking from verses 22 all the way to 27.
Yeah, in answer to Damaraj.
Yes, and I'm kind of surprised why Maharaj Parikshit, of all people, would speak the way he spoke. Because, no, I put the wrong one. I want you to help me understand why he spoke the way he spoke. That is here, from the verse itself. Now she, the chaste one. So Maharaj Parikshit is referring to Mother Earth. Being unfortunately forsaken by the personality of God, laments her future with tears in her eyes. For now, she's been ruled and enjoyed by lower class men who pose as rulers. Now, my problem is here, being unfortunately forsaken by the personality of Godhead. My understanding is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not forsake his dear devotees. So why did the Lord forsake his devotee? Did Mother Bhumi do something against the Lord and the Lord became unhappy with her and so he forsook her? What happened? And does God actually forsake his devotees? That's my question.
Thank you very much, Sadhu Prabhu. It's a beautiful question. And I'm not surprised because this is the sign of who you are. And that is why I started the class from the way I started it from, because I was also meditating on that same statement. Jesus Christ asked that same question on the cross. Dear Lord, why have thou forsaken me? He's a pure devotee of the Lord. And when you look at the life of the Prabhupada, why have thou forsaken him? Why has the Lord? Prabhupada was hit on the rib by a crazy cow, a mad cow. And he fell into the gutter unconscious, stayed there for several hours before he was rescued. So why would the Lord put his devotees in this situation? But the Lord activities is described as pastimes. That is why he said, that's why I quoted those two verses in the beginning. Yada yada hida masia glani bhavati bharata. Abitanam adas masia tadat manam srijamia. Whenever and wherever there's a decline in religious principle, at that time I descend. So the Lord had to come. So for the purpose of fulfilling the second verse, Paritina ya saduna vinasa ya duskitam. Damasam stapanata yam sabat samabami juge to give pleasure to the devotees, to annihilate the miscreants, as to reestablish religious principles. So the Lord had to come. And for the Lord to come, you don't expect a king or the president of a nation to come without the entourage. So the Lord has to send his entourage here. And whatever is required to fulfill the mission of the Lord will be enacted. So the Lord seemingly externally forsake his devotees, but they are never actually forsaken. But for the purpose of disseminating knowledge, achieving the purpose of the Lord, this thing, so they are put in a situation, and that is why it is called pastimes of the Lord. Because the Lord has to put them in situation, it has to make believe. The whole purpose behind cinema or film is that it is made to be like a make-believe, right? So that it teaches us lesson. And that is an interesting thing. In our modern day education, if educationists are already in the pedagogy of education, in the system of teaching, now it has become a standard, even approved by the UNESCO, that the best form of teaching is telling stories. So you see that the great personalities of the world, now they are adapting that. And that is also beautiful, because when you look at the whole of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, it's all about stories. Sukadev Goswami, when the stages of Namisarayam, when they were asking the question, he started telling the stories. And he said in the 19th chapter of this same canto of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, when Narad Muni, when he was explaining, he said, well, these stories are meant because they have the efficacy to purify the consciousness of the soul. So Prabhupada also said in one of his purposes that common men in Kali Yuga are very attracted to listening, to watching cinemas, to hearing stories. Then this Srimad Bhagavatams, this Bhagavad Gita is a nice options for them. So the Lord seemingly forsake his devotees because he said nothing is past them. But the devotees of God is never at any time forsaken. But to make it make believe, to make it realistic, to make it seen from the perspective of the conditioned soul, because the conditioned soul cannot understand the activities of the Lord and his devotees. So for them, in their grossest level, what they can see is what they can grossly see. So the Lord come in, he acted just like a good story writer. He writes a very nice script. And when you watch those scripts, you never knew when you start shedding tears. Even though it's a cinema, it's a concocted story, it's enacted, but you knew this, but you sit down in the cinema hall and you are shedding tears because your emotion is rising because of the activity that goes in there. So in the same way, the Lord, because he's the original teacher, he knows this is the best form of teaching. So he enacted pastimes and make a belief, certain situation, so that we can learn. So the Lord is, Mother Bhumi was actually not forsaken, but because it is a drama, it is made believe to be forsaken. But when you read further, we will see that in the same end, towards the end of this chapter, canto, when Almoni was explaining to Shilvesidev, yes, he was explaining to him that the Lord in himself, he puts Maharaj Parishit in that state of consciousness, because Maharaj Parishit is not an ordinary devotee. He's not an ordinary conditioned soul to be what? To be bewildered, to put a snake around the sage. He wouldn't have done that. He's a Raja Rishi. He's educated, he's knowledgeable. He knows principles of Dharma, and he knows what is the attitude towards a sage who is in meditation. But the Lord puts him in that situation in his Yoga Maya, in the Yoga Maya, so that he can act in that way, so that he can create those situations. So the devotees of the Lord are not actually forsaken, but they are made to be like that because to achieve the purpose behind the whole of the activities of the Lord's pastime. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the answer. So the understanding is that Krishna does not forsake, even though the situation may appear to be like the devotee is being forsaken, but in reality, Krishna is
forsaken.
not in his pastime.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that is why Krishna does that with his pure devotees, because if Krishna should do that with me, I'll consider it forsaking. I don't think I'm going to say Krishna. Well, that's why it's not going to happen to me, because I'm nobody Krishna to play pastimes with. So those Krishna play pastimes with, they are able to withstand what they go through. But even then, see, like Maharaj Yudhishthira, even though Krishna told him everything as to why things happened, but he still kept lamenting. No, even after the war was over, he still was blaming himself. So these pastimes, sometimes it's difficult to really, as conditioned souls, get into it and see where what is coming from. So thank you for the answer. Anyone else with any question or comment, please indicate by raising your hand.
Sir, the beautiful thing is that sometimes also we never realize this our position also. Although we may be devotees at a different level, but it's not an ordinary to become a Krishna conscious person. And that is one thing that we should also have at the back of our mind. Because when you look at our lives, when we look at what we do, it doesn't mean anything because we are already here. But when you look at the general mass of people in the age of Kali, you can imagine where they are. I was just sharing in the course of the lecture, the story of the experience of one lawyer, and he was just amazed. He was looking. It's like something from the unknown world just came upon him. And he could not. In fact, he had to enter into my vehicle and come along with me. I dropped him somewhere. He said he wasn't. I'm telling you, in less than 6 hours of the program, he has called twice. So we also, just like when Srila Prabhupada started his pastimes, his disciples were all people from different backgrounds. But while those activities were going on, they never realized the importance of their role they played in the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. Because when the Lord comes, yes, you're right, it's only his pure devotees, they come along with him. In fact, he asks them to go ahead of him, and then he comes and play pastimes with them. But even the devotees of the Lord, and that is why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Dasa, Das, Anudas. We're servant of the servant. So we may not be in that position, yes. We may not be there. But to be here also is not an ordinary thing. So we should appreciate ourselves also sometimes that it is not ordinary. Lord Krishna says that it's after many, many births and deaths. Bahunam Jammanam Anti, Ginavam Mam Prapadi Anti, Vasudeva Savamiti, Samahatma Sudalaba. To accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not an ordinary thing. It happens after many, many births. So our situation is also like that. And I'll tell you, the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM that we'll be writing next, when the devotees in the next 1,000 years of Kali Yuga will be talking, they will say, at that 1,000 years ago, there was this devotee called Sahadev. He was like this. And they were wondering, they would not be able to imagine that somebody could be like Sahadev. Because at that time, these things were so degraded and so degenerated that it cannot be comprehended. Just like 50 years ago, if you tell us some of the things that is happening today, we will not find it funny. When I was growing, I was sharing with one of my sons 2 days ago. We're discussing, and we're talking something. And so I was telling him, I will get 3 pence, Nigerian 3 pence then, and 1 kobo. 1 kobo, from 1 kobo, I'll eat in the morning, in the afternoon, then come back to eat in the evening. When I come back from that 1 kobo, I will still go and fetch drinkable water somewhere. I will do so many things, and you can imagine it. But today, when you look at just just our monies. And you can imagine what it is. It's unbelievable. And then you go back 100 years back or 200 years back, then you go forward, and the next 200 years to come, you can imagine what it will be like. It is unheard of in the past that somebody will use chemical to prepare, to grow food that human beings will consume. It's unheard of. You can't think about it. But today, everything we eat is contaminated with chemicals. It's kind of, it's an amazing thing.
Well, thank you so much. It's just like our children today. If you should tell them how we used to use television, black and white, where we used to mount poles, and then somebody will be standing behind the pole, and then you'll be telling, direct it this way, direct it, because you're not getting this. What are you talking about? So, yeah, thank you so much. Anyone else with any questions?
Yeah.
Srimad Mahaprabhu, please unmute. Hare
Thank you very
Krishna.
much. Thank you, Srimad Prabhu. Welcome.
Hare Krishna to everybody. All glories to
Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
This is a good day. Thank you
Actually,
very
it's not a question. It's a comment on the question, the first question.
Okay.
So Mara Parishit was saying that Mother Bhumi was unfortunately,
Maseki. Yeah.
forsaken. So he wasn't actually speaking in the sense that the Lord has forsaken her, but he was speaking in the historical sense, in the sense that the Lord was with her when the Lord was present on earth. There was protection, and once the Lord has left the planet, then it's like she has been forsaken. So like Bhagavatam says, after the Lord departed from this world, religiosity, where did religiosity take shelter? So in that sense, Mara Parishi was speaking in a historical sense that the Lord has left her. And because of in the absence of the Lord, now these things are happening to her. But he wasn't actually speaking in the sense, in the figurative sense, that the Lord has forsaken her, but in the historical sense, that the Lord just left, and after the departure of the Lord, then Kali, personality of Kali set in. So that is just my contribution. But all the explanation given also still stands, that the Lord actually does not forsake his devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Remember that, Prabhu. Yeah, what you're saying is absolutely right, because I recall that Mother Bhumi herself was lamented. So Maharaj Parishit speaking that way was actually speaking on behalf of Mother Bhumi, not on behalf of Krishna, because Mother Bhumi herself was lamenting that she was blessed. She had the footprints of Lord Krishna stamped all over her, everywhere. Now the Lord has left. So she is feeling the emptiness of having such association with the Lord. So she feels like that. But Lord Krishna, so thank you so much. But I have another question. Shri Salika Prabhu, from the text.
Thank you.
Not sure, from the paper, I should say.
Okay.
I highlighted it here. That is the third sentence. Unfortunately, in the age of Kali, the lower class men without training occupy the post of a ruler by strength of popular votes. And instead of protecting the sufferers, such men create a situation quite intolerable for everyone. So here, Srila Prabhupada is saying that people who have no training, they are low-class people, and they have no training. They occupy the post of being rulers by the strength of popular votes. And when they come to power, what do? They do not protect the suffering. They do not protect the people. I was saying the other time, like in the US here, anytime a person becomes the president and the victory speech, so far we haven't had a lady president yet, but every time the president, the president-elect says that his first prime duty is to protect the citizens. So, but people are unable to protect because they are not first class and they do not have training. We in ISKCON supposedly have the training, if even one is from a very low class, but the person gets trained. So what happens in our movement when people have had the training and yet act just like ordinary leaders in different nations or organizations do? How do we consider them? Can we use same harsh words for such people?
Thank you very much, Sadi, for that reflective thoughts and eventual question. When we look at the 12th canto of SRIMAD Bhagavatam that describes the age of Kali, that section answers all of the questions that is posed around the thoughts that you shared. Because in the past, it is unheard of in a religious setting to have a lacking in character in personalities that represent religiosity. But because of the influence of the age of Kali, so it is no longer like that, because in Kali Yuga, religion is no longer being rated based on the principles of religion, which is enumerated in the scriptures. Religion in Kali Yuga is being rated based on external calculations or external perceptions. Let me put it that way. So that is exactly the same thing that happens, that even though the religious books or the scriptures, maybe you should mute that speaker. So even though even though we have access to the scriptures, we have access to the information that is related in the scriptures, but because of the influence of the age, it becomes very easy for people who are not actually being religious minded to come into the environment of religious setting and pose themselves as religious people. And because of the influence of the age, because in the past, in the previous ages, when somebody is identified as a religious person, it is calculated and based on character, on the development of quality that that person has. But in this age, it is just simply by position. And that is why you see, even in a spiritual organization, even an organization like that of ours, you see that we also are gradually becoming, I think it was earlier today, I was speaking with one devotee, and we were recalling a scenario I think that was in 2003 when Srila Gurudev came to Nigeria, and for the first time he said, "You choose your leaders," and he asked us to vote for who we want to be our leaders. I think it's that 2001 or 2002. or maybe 2000, between that year, 2000, between 2000 and 2003, I can't remember the exact year. And then when after the whole of the activities, someone asked like Krishna Pad, but this is not supposed to be our system of leadership. We're supposed to be based on monarchical system of leadership because we're following the very scriptures. And the very scriptures does not accommodate this system of democracy. And so like Krishna Pad explained that, yeah, sometimes the guru knows, but because he knows the level of the consciousness of the people that are around. So sometimes he tries to free them from unnecessary offenses so that it does not destroy the little spiritual creeper they have. So he allows certain things, even though it is not the best thing to do. So he's allowing us to vote was because as a result of the fact that there are so many, even among the so-called devotees, they are making a gross offenses against the spiritual master's decision. And in order not to destroy their spiritual creeper, so he allows it, even though he knows it's not the right thing. But then, just to give them some sense of belonging in a modest way, with a little of spiritual guidance. So he allows them to do this. So the reality is that Kali Yuga is such a deadly period of time that we see so many things. But it is not surprising because it has been foretold, it has been predicted in the scriptures that this is going to be the experience. And even in a spiritual setting, we will find this thing to be there. But how we respond to them is what makes the difference. One can react to them or respond to them. And how to respond to them also are given, guidance are given in the scriptures. That when we see this kind of things going on, even in a religious setting or a spiritual setting, then how to respond to them is given in the scriptures itself. That although these things will be prevalent, it will be present in Kali Yuga, in our religious system, in our spiritual organizations, but how to respond to them are guided in such a way that it does not become, like Guru Dev said, our own Maya. And we always say that we shouldn't allow somebody's Maya to become our own Maya. So that is the only reason I can explain that causes this kind of a situation in the Kali, because it is actually part of the symptoms of the age of Kali. And you can't remove the symptoms from the essence, because the essence of water is that it gives taste. Fire, it gives heat. So Kali Yuga gives this kind of this is part of the symptoms of Kali. So we'll continue to see all of these kind of experiences. But then, how to respond to them also is given in the scriptures, so that we don't get caught up with those kind of distractions while in this part of spirituality.
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you for the answer. The answer is beautiful, well accepted by Richard Sahadev here. But you know, that also leads to so many questions, my brother. But I'll let others speak if others have something to say. Hare Krishna. Anyone with any question, comment? Well, we may have some other interesting things to talk about.
Maybe
so,
some chastisement.
At this point, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute. And then we chant big Hare Krishna to express our appreciation to our speaker. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Panchakapatarvyascha, Vasudevya Evacha, Patitaram Bhavravyo, Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Jai.
Hare Krishna, Haribo.